What's up, everybody? Welcome to another week of the Betting Booth. Jared Sandler with you. Zach Barron's going to be joining us shortly. Already 3 games here in Week 17 with the triple header on Christmas. They all looked like great games when the season started, right? You got Broncos, Chiefs, Commanders, Cowboys. Commanders coming off their great 2024 season. And then in the middle, the Vikings and the Lions, 2 teams that we figured would be perhaps playoff contenders. The Vikings and Lions are both going to miss the playoffs. Max Brosmer ended up beating the Lions and eliminating the Lions from the playoffs. It allowed the Packers to clinch a playoff spot. The Broncos beat the Chiefs and their third-string quarterback in a really ugly game, and then the Cowboys and Commanders in the first game. Neither team with anything to play for. The Cowboys get the win. So on paper, all those games looked like they were going to be great when the season started. Looked like the NFL was going to dominate Christmas with, a triple header worth of meaningful games, but that just really wasn't the case at all. But as we've always said, whenever there's a game, there's a line. And when there's a line, there's money to be won. And, there are a lot of home dogs, a lot of home dogs, big home dogs this week. Which road favorites are going to tumble? And yesterday, the Lions, with so much on the line, tumbled. And we've talked about this, that when you've got teams that are playing for a lot against a team that's not playing for much at all, you think, well, that's an auto click for the team that's got a lot on the line, but that's not always the case. As a matter of fact, remember, with betting, it's not about who wins the game or loses the game. It all relates to the spread. And a lot of times when you got a matchup of teams that are playing with a lot on the line against a team that's got nothing to lose, a lot of times the team with nothing to lose might not end up winning the game, but they do pretty well against the spread. And we saw that yesterday with the Lions, of course, with a lot on the line, losing the game outright and losing a chance of making the playoffs. We bring Zach in. Zach, another week with some interesting matchups. And one of the things that I just was talking about quickly, you got a lot of home dogs, and you're just not going to see – you rarely ever see favorites just or road teams just dominate. There is value in being at home, and we already saw one of those road favorites lose in the Lions, and we got some interesting road favorites that might be in our contest here this week. But did you get to watch the games yesterday, or did you pass because they ended up being kind of 3 meaningless games?
No, we watched all the games yesterday. I actually kind of wish we would have started the show on – originally, I wanted to do the show Friday because I thought the games yesterday were all stinkers. The only team that had anything to fight for yesterday was the Lions, who I guess you already went over, looked like they were done for the year yesterday. But now I kind of wish we would have done the games yesterday because we did have a great betting day yesterday. Went 3-0 yesterday on the picks. And kind of crazy holiday games this year, 7-0 for underdogs. If you look at the 3 games on Thanksgiving, then we had the Black Friday game when the Bears beat the Eagles or covered against the Eagles and they actually won outright. And then yesterday, if you look at the closing number, we did have Dallas -6.5, which we both were on that. Dallas covered, but if you got the closing line on Washington, you got a win betting Washington. Minnesota dog covered, and then KC at home. There was some crazy stats on KC, 14-0 as a home dog with a line bigger than 7 since like 1970. So all the trends kind of played out in the right way for us yesterday. So might have had some of the games in our 3 if we did this show on Wednesday, but it was a good start to the week. Did get to watch all the games. The Minnesota Lions game, I tuned out for some of the second half because it was such a dud, and the Lions offense was hard to watch.
That was a big one. That was the one that had the most meaning to me as a football fan, as a Packers fan. Nice now that the Packers don't have to sweat making the playoffs. See if what happens in the Bears-Niners game this weekend, whether or not the Packers still have a path to win the division. But, what's interesting, and this is why, when we run this back next year, listening regularly will help. I think with the Lions, and I'm not sure your thoughts on this, but we talked over and over, the Lions injuries. And for a while, they were able to sidestep that. But I just think that when you have as many injuries as they have, it will catch up to you. And I think that's what we saw from this Lions team. They just had way too many injuries on the offensive line and the secondary. And I think it just ultimately caught up to them because that's a good team. They just had a tough time winning games down the stretch, and they weren't very healthy. And I think that that ended up being a problem with the Cowboys game. You also hit on something. You texted me before the game, and you got me on the first half over. And I think they made some history yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah, 15-1 in first half overs this year for the Cowboys. So they made, with some of these records now that they play an extra game every year, some of these records you have to look at and see, but they did it with one game left to play. So 15-1 in first half overs. I started blindly betting it once I heard about this trend, and sometimes the books will kind of even it out a little bit and make the number a certain number, but we just keep betting it. And Dak in these meaningless games, once they're out of the playoffs, Dak seems to come up and pad the stats. And we got there, I think it was 34 in the first half yesterday, and we got it at 24. I think it ended at 25.5 or something like that. So we got a good number on it early in the week, and 15-1 is pretty amazing. So that Cowboys offense, and the defense being what it is, in the secondary and our weaknesses, looks like Dallas in the draft this year will probably be drafting some defensive players. But that trend hit yesterday, and agree with you on the Lions. I fell into the trap last week with the Lions. I bet on the trends. After a loss, we had all those splits about how good the Lions are. But like you said, their injuries caught up to them. I think Dan Campbell calling the plays caught up with him. I don't think if you're a Lions fan, you go into next year, you're really disappointed right now. I do think, when you compare the Lions and the Chiefs, both teams went 15-2 last year. Both teams not going to make the playoffs. I think this is the first time ever we had two 15-win teams, and then the following year, those two teams are out of the playoffs. I think the outlook for both teams, for me, the Lions have a little bit more promising because you have all those injured players coming back. I think they'll get a better coordinator in there next year calling the plays. I don't think that's the right spot for Dan Campbell calling the plays. So I think, you're really disappointed as a Lions fan right now. I do think you still have your quarterback. You have the two-headed monster at running back. You still have St. Brown and the skill position players. And then they'll shore up that defense a little bit in the draft, probably make some moves. So I don't think it's as dire for the Lions fans. The Chiefs, I see a lot more holes in that team, and I don't think Mahomes is going to be ready to start the year next year. So, we fell into the trap last week because of the trends. So I was a little disappointed in myself with how depleted they were up front. I mean, they just couldn't run the ball at all these last few weeks. And so should have seen that one coming, but don't have to take the Lions anymore this year. So that's a good thing.
And that's the thing. They had such a high-powered offense, and I think when, especially these days, high-powered offense, you think of the ability to throw the ball, and then they have an elite receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's really been the running game that has been so big for them over the last couple of years, and that's, Ben Johnson looks like even more of a genius. Fair or unfair, it almost heightens, his value when you look at what the Lions were unable to do this year and look at what the Bears are doing this year compared to how much of a mess they were offensively last year. And the Bears have an interesting game against the 49ers. I'm curious whether it's one of our three. If it's not, maybe we'll still we'll talk about it. And I've got a question, just a general football question, whenever we do get to that game. But last week, you were coming off a 3-0 week, went 1-2. You mentioned the Lions were one of your plays. I went 1-1-1. I drew on pushed on the Giants, lost with the Ravens. And then won with the Eagles. The Eagles have been a good friend of mine here the last couple of weeks. You lost on the Lions and the Cowboys, and then won with a really good play with the Raiders, getting 14.5 points. And the Raiders have an interesting game as well this week. I know you kind of swore them off before going back to that last week. This week they play the Giants in the battle for potentially the number 1 overall pick, a game that I think neither team in a lot of respects would want to win big picture, but one team is, unless they tie, one team is going to win. And I'm curious whether that makes our three as well. But I guess at 1-1-1 with that push, I have control of the board. And before you take my favorite pick, I'll go ahead and start if you're ready to roll.
Ready to roll. I'm worried about your first pick because I have a clear favorite.
Okay, so I don't know if this is your clear favorite. I'm curious, but my first pick is a team that when we talked last week, I listed 5 teams who I think have the teams that have the 5 best chance to win, 5 best. Not really speaking English well right now. The 5 teams that have the best chance to win the Super Bowl, and this team was not a team I expected to put in there, but they are, and they play tomorrow night, and that's tomorrow afternoon, the Houston Texans. They're on the road. They're getting earlier in the week, got them at 2.5. It's now down to 1.5. With the juice, it might be able to get a 2 against the Chargers. But I'm going to kind of play off the theme that I mentioned with the Lions. We have talked a lot about the Chargers' injuries, specifically the injuries to their offensive line, and they have been able to work around that. And Justin Herbert has been really good. Justin Herbert what he has done this year, I think, statistically, 10 years from now, you look at the back of the football card, you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, good year. But when you consider what he's had to work around, incredibly impressive. I just don't know if the Texans are the team that allow him to do that another week. The Texans have a lot on the line, right? They're still fighting for a division. I just ultimately I look at the Chargers offensive line, no Slater, no Alt, they're beat up. And what this Texas defense is able to do and the way their offense has been able to figure out how to do enough. I think the Texans are the better team and they're getting points. I know it's a road game, but it's not some crazy environment in Los Angeles. You're not dealing with conditions. So I'm going to take the Texans. I'll play it at 1.5 unless you're seeing a 2 out there. I'd love to get the 2. Like if you're watching this and you can get the 2, I would jump on that. 2 is a key number, but whether it's 1.5 or 2, I mean, I like the money line in this one as well. So I'll take the Texans for my first pick.
Yeah, I bet this at 2.5. I'm still seeing 2 on some books and 1.5 on others. So like you said, if you see the 2, it is trending towards moving to 1.5. I think there's a lot of professional love for this Texans team in this spot. And so the pros are betting this down while the public's coming in on the Chargers. I'm aligned with you on this one. Like I said, bet it at 2.5. These teams met in the playoffs last year, and the Chargers came into the playoffs super hot. And then that defense, you saw what the defense did to them in the playoffs. And some of these playoff games from last year, you could say, let's throw it out and, doesn't really affect this year. But I think the scheme-wise, DeMeco Ryans' defense against Herbert, and Herbert went into that game last year in the playoffs with a healthy offensive line. And now they're coming in with backups, and they haven't really played teams that could take advantage of that weak offensive line. We saw it again, like 4 weeks ago, they played the Eagles. They barely won that game because of Hurts's 4 turnovers, but Herbert was running for his life in that game against the Eagles' defensive front. And arguably Houston's defensive front is better than the Eagles. So you would expect them to get pressure. And I've been saying on the show, Herbert as a dog, even though I faded him last week as a dog incorrectly, again, Herbert's splits as a dog has been fantastic. As a favorite, for whatever reason, he hasn't been good. 9-16 straight up against teams over 500 the last 4 years. So in these big spots against teams that are above 500, hasn't been that good. I have this line as a pick 'em in my model. So if you're going to give me points on the better defense in a playoff preview game, I'm going to take the better defense, getting points. Like the spot for the Texans, like you said, if we're going to get points, I sprinkled the money line as well. But 2.5, I loved it. Still love it at 2. I think you can find some 2s out there right now before it moves even more towards the Texans. So
love it. I'll take it at 2 for our contest. I'll take that extra half. All right. So, but that wasn't going to be your 1-1. So
that wasn't going to be my 1. Okay. It was probably in my 3, maybe my 3 or 4. So it might have made it in, but my number 1 is going to be your USC favorite Sam Darnold led Seattle Seahawks, giving 7, favored by 7 here. I haven't bet it yet because I'm seeing a lot of public dollars coming in on Carolina, and I'm hoping I can get 6.5 on this game. If I do see it start trending towards 7.5, I will play it at 7 before it moves to 7.5 on my book, if I can find it. But we've been crushing. This usually is a spot, if you've been following the show, I've been betting Carolina as a dog most weeks I've been giving the stats on Bryce Young as a favorite. He's never won as a favorite. He's never won against the spread as a favorite. But as a dog, he's been great to us this year, and we've been making money. I didn't put in my 3 last week, but did bet Carolina as a dog at home against Tampa Bay. We got there. But Sam Darnold, as much as we talk about him in these big spots, he's been great against bad teams. So in his career as a favorite of 7 or more, Sam Darnold's 12-0, 9-3 against the spread. So there, we talk about him, against the Rams last week. We bet the Rams and covered at the +1.5 number. But when he plays these weaker defenses, Sam Darnold comes to play. We haven't seen a big game from Jackson Smith and Jigba in a while. I think Carolina is going to have trouble with them. And Seattle's great at stopping the run, which is Carolina's strength. So now you're going to ask Bryce Young to do a lot in the passing game. Mike McDonald, we talked about how good he's been on the road. I know it's not a ton of stats, but in his young career, 10-4 against the spread on the road. So he finds a way to get his team fired up on the road and to travel, and this defense travel as well. So I think we have 2 different classes of team here. I think Seattle's in my tier 1, and Carolina is just a different class of team. And Carolina's got a big game against Tampa next week, which will most likely decide the division. So if this game is, not a close game late, down by 10, Carolina might be just thinking, next week we have the game for the division against Tampa Bay. So it's a little bit of a sandwich spot for Carolina. I like Seattle here. And again, I haven't played it yet because I'm just hoping to get that 6.5 key number before I play it. But going to play Seattle at whatever the number ends up being. Going to wait and be patient here.
Seattle, 1 loss on the road. Only the Patriots have been better. They're 7-0 away from home. No other team has just 1 loss. So that's how good Seattle's been away from home. And it's not just this year. And you mentioned, and this is going to come into play perhaps it's going to come into play with my next pick to tease ahead here. But results in games can affect the way teams approach things this week. Now, that's not going to happen specifically with Carolina Tampa for this week. Looking at kickoff times, I think they both play at the same time. Let's see, the Tampa Bay's first. Yeah, they both are in the 12 o'clock window.
Right.
But you're right. So if Tampa loses, then Carolina's got the division wrapped, no matter what happens to them this week and next. If Carolina loses and Tampa wins, it really doesn't matter because then next week it's still in Carolina's control.
Right.
And I know that, for fans, it's easy to say, well, just punt on this week. You're probably not going to beat Seattle. Obviously, Carolina's not going to do that. But what I could see, Zach, is if they go down early, instead of fighting tooth and nail to get back in the game, like if it's one of those situations where, hey, they're down 17 early in the third quarter, instead of trying to get back in, I wonder if Dave Canales kind of calls off the dogs and sort of coast through the finish line to make sure that they're healthy and ready to go next week against Tampa. And by the way, if going along with what you said, this might be hey, let's hope Seattle covers and they win big. And if that impacts the line, maybe we're playing Carolina next week.
Right, exactly.
Given what the situation is.
Yeah, and there's a ton of recency bias. We saw Seattle win a close game against the Rams, but Carolina won against the Bucs. If Carolina loses against the Bucs last week, I think we see this line at like 9.5, 10. But the public sees Carolina win an important division game, and now 75% of the bets coming in are on Carolina. So you got a public dog that's a darling, getting this many points. The line kind of jumps out at you. Carolina division leader, looks like they're heading into the playoffs. Why are they getting so many points? But the books know that this is a Sam Darnold spot. This is a different class of team. And the pros, most people I've talked to like Seattle. I'm in agreement with them here. So, hopefully we get, like you said, we get Carolina to call off the dogs late if this is a 10, 13-point game and they just decide, hey, we don't need to risk any injuries here. We don't need to break our backs when it's all going to come down to next week. And like you said, if they look up at the scoreboard and somehow I do think the books look like Tampa Bay, they're 6-point favorite against the Dolphins, probably going to win the game. But if they look up at the scoreboard and the Dolphins are somehow winning that game, maybe they say, hey, this game has no importance to us. So, So that's not the only reason I like Seattle, but I just think it's a different class of team. So love the spot for Seattle here.
Hey, you said something, and we have a lot of our buddies watch and listen to this, and they're just kind of casual gamblers. You said, if you see the line trending towards, and
Right.
we talk about that. What do you mean by that? How can people kind of get a sense, hey, this line might be moving?
So a lot of times it's the juice. So like I originally saw this line at 7.5. I saw it come down to 7 on some books, and I look up how the public's trending and where the money's coming in. So I see that 75% of the money's coming in on Carolina. Most likely, you're not going to see it go back to 7.5 because you've got it already moving one way and you have money coming in on Carolina. I'll look at different books. So I'll look at different places and see if I can find numbers that are moving a certain way before it comes out on my book and try to make assumptions based on that. But unless there's something that the books find out that the public is not aware of, usually you can kind of see how the line is moving. So 7.5, we saw it move to 7. Now money coming on Carolina. I would doubt we're going to see 7.5. So I can get 7 now. I don't think I'm going to get a worse number than 7, right? I don't think I'm going to see 7.5 again. So either I'm going to get 7 or I'm going to see it go to 6.5 because that's where it's trending in this game. But then you have news in different games that can really affect the line that you have to really read in advance. Like this Buffalo Philly number is a weird number this week because we don't know what we're going to see from the Eagles. Do they need this game? We've heard Josh Allen isn't practicing all week and nobody knows what the injury is. They say it's a foot injury, but the more I look into it, I can't find anything about like what exactly is wrong with Josh Allen. So like maybe tomorrow, you get some news about Josh Allen is on one leg and now the line's moving a certain way. So you just try to get as much info as you can and, be as active in terms of looking at the way the lines are trending to get the best number possible. So with the Seattle number, I feel like I'm not going to get a worse number than what it is right now. So there's no need to rush to the window and bet it until, maybe I get the 6.5. I'll jump on it immediately if I see 6.5 because I could see it going back to 7. But just following the lines and following the news as much as you can.
And you mentioned the juice as well. That's another thing to look at.
Right.
The money line, obviously everyone sees what the odds are, but just because you're betting with points against the spread doesn't mean there's still not a different level of juice that you might be able to get. And the closer the juice is to even, perhaps a little more volatility in the way that number could move.
For sure.
And that's another thing to look at as well. All right. So I mentioned how the domino effect of games impacting one another. And my next pick, I'm going to go, I feel like this team has been really profitable. Next year, we need to track like how much each team has either made us or cost us money. And I actually feel like the Cleveland Browns have been profitable. They're 3-12 overall, but I feel like whether betting with them or against them, it's turned out well. I'm taking the Browns, getting 3 at home against the Steelers. And the first thing that I'll point out, I think there's a decent chance that the Packers win tomorrow night. They're certainly their favorite, and that line has moved more towards them being a bigger favorite. And maybe that means it's less likely that Lamar plays or more likely Jordan Love plays or a combination. What's interesting, there's still a lot on the line for both teams, maybe more on the line for the Ravens just because they're fighting for their playoff lives, whereas the Packers have clinched but still have a chance of the division. But whatever the case, the Packers are at home against the Ravens. You at least have to consider the Packers are 4.5-point favorites. That suggests it's more than just a coin flip, their advantage. But let's just say it's a coin flip. Well, if the Ravens lose, the Steelers have absolutely nothing to play for. Zero. They've won the division. I guess maybe taking a look, I guess there could be a seeding thing, but you're not going to risk the health of a very veteran team, and that's what the Steelers are. They're a very veteran team. You're not going to risk the health of some key players to maybe have a better chance at seeding. And I don't even know to what degree they can benefit because they're going to be by far and away the worst division winner in the AFC. So they actually might not really have a whole lot going on there. But are you really going to run Aaron Rodgers out there against a really good Cleveland defense in the elements on the road if you have nothing to play for? They're going to be without DK Metcalf because he punched a fan. And, he is a weapon of some degree for them. And plus, let's take all that aside. We always talk about the Cleveland defense being so much better at home than on the road. Myles Garrett has a chance at the sack record. They're going to be fired up. The total on this game is low. It's 34.5. Usually low totals, you get a dog for, at a field goal or more. That's usually a good connected play. I don't know. I don't love playing Shedeur Sanders, but we don't need him to win. We've seen that Pittsburgh's secondary can be vulnerable at times. Shedeur Sanders, if nothing else, will chuck the ball downfield. Give me one big play, and I feel like I got a good shot to cover. And that doesn't even factor in the possibility that Pittsburgh isn't going to be sprinting through the finish line in this game if Baltimore loses last night. And I think you could see a number move if the Ravens do lose. And so, if it's a game that is of interest to you on the Cleveland side, I would say jump on it now before that number goes more disadvantageously away from Cleveland or away from Pittsburgh as a favorite towards Cleveland if the Ravens lose tomorrow night.
I love it. This was going to be my next pick. I was almost going to be my first pick, but I thought you were going to lean Seattle. So I don't know if you would have gone Seattle if I would have taken this pick first.
If you would have taken Cleveland, there's still one other game I like.
Yeah.
It would have been a toss-up between that other game and Seattle.
Okay. But like you said, the books are telling us that the Ravens are probably going to lose the Packers. It's 4.5. Now it opened at 2.5. That line with the Lamar news of him being out, it's moved all the way to 4.5. And I think the drop-off from Lamar to Huntley is a lot bigger drop-off than if Jordan Love doesn't play and it's Malik. We don't know who it's going to be for the Packers yet. So a lot of questions in the Packers-Ravens game to bet that game. But the books are telling us that the Packers are probably going to be the winning side and the line moving from 2.5 to 4.5. So like you said, Pittsburgh has a ton of veteran players. They've got Rodgers. They've got Cam Hayward. They've got Thielen. They've got all these older players. And if this game is meaningless to them, they can't move in the standings at all. They'll just have a home playoff game in the first round. They're not going to move up in the standings. So I don't see why Tomlin wouldn't get them right in this game. What's hilarious, it's kind of badass about this game is if he does sit Rodgers, it's going to be Mason Rudolph against Myles Garrett. And Myles
what a
Garrett
way to break the sack record.
Right, exactly. With all the history between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph, for him to be the quarterback potentially, for him to get the sack record, I don't see Mason Rudolph doing a Brett Favre and going down on purpose for Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
but like you said, the Browns have been making us money this year. I haven't bet them as much since Shedeur became the quarterback because I've been so afraid of what Shedeur is potentially going to do in a football game. But I got to give Shedeur credit. He's been improving week to week, and he's been moving the offense up and down the field. He's been using his legs more. Fannin has been, his favorite target on the field, and that defense at home has been really good to us. I'll give you some splits on Browns Steelers, which show you how much the Browns home field matters. The Browns have lost 23 straight games against the Steelers on the road outright, but at home they've won 5 of their last 6 and have covered the last 3 in a row. So that's how much in the Browns Steelers matchup, that's how much the home field matters. And now you're telling us that potentially the Steelers have nothing to play for in this game on top of that. So Browns have been competitive, and no matter, even with all this, that news is out there. Everybody, a sharp bettor will know that the Ravens game has so much impact on this game. The public is still coming in on the Steelers. 78% of the money coming on this game is on the Steelers. The line opened at 4.5, moved to 3.5. You still have some 3.5s out there. Like you said, I said to be patient on Seattle. And this game, you got to get that. If you can get that 3.5, that hook is super important.
Yeah.
I would grab that now. I do think if the Ravens lose, you could see some 2.5s. I think that line will even go down even further if Tomlin calls off the dogs in this game. So this would have been my next pick. Love the spot for the Browns. We'll be playing it. I did get it at 4. Played it again at 3.5. So get some good numbers in there. If you can get that 3.5, get that right now.
Yeah, and I got it earlier in the week at 3.5, and if it gets back up there, we'll probably play a little more. And here's just a quick update: T.J. Watt's not going to play. So one path for that you would think of for a Steelers cover. I mean, there are plenty of paths, I guess, but
Right.
T.J. Watt, because one of Shador Sanders' biggest faults, he holds on the ball too long. That was an issue for him at Colorado. It's still an issue. You get a sack fumble. Even without the fumble part, sacks change the field from a field position standpoint. But when TJ Watt's not playing, that changes the outlook. So if you are playing Cleveland, that's a nice little feather in your cap. Hey, I want to ask you a quick question we got from the chat from our buddy Nick. He wants to know thoughts on the Hoosiers laying 6.5 in the Rose Bowl against the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a number that's dropped. I've seen it as high as 7.5, and it's dropping now down to 6.5. What are your thoughts on this? I know I got some thoughts, but I'm curious where you're headed with this one.
Man, I mean, I think Alabama's the sharp side just based on a betting perspective. I think Alabama, coming off a game, you get worried about these teams, especially a team that's undefeated and then getting all this rest coming off a huge win against Ohio State and what they're going to look like to cover this big number against an Alabama team that's coming in, playing, just trending after playing a game last week. We played Alabama against OU. I was taking a bunch of shit about that once the score was 17-0. And then we saw that game completely flip. And OU show their true colors on offense in the second half of that game. But I haven't played this game at 7.5. I would have loved Bama. I think that hook is super important. At 6.5, a little bit more of a toss-up for me. I do think Indiana should win the game, but it's a big spread for a playoff game for a team that hasn't been there. All the Heisman Mendoza hype going in, number one pick in the draft, to perform and just blow the doors off of Bama. I don't really see that happening. But man, 6.5 is a lot. I don't know. I don't have a strong read on this game, nor have I, since these games are, so far away, I haven't really done a super deep dive on this game and all the trends. But on paper at 7.5, I would have taken Bama. At 6.5, more of a toss-up to me.
Yeah, I like Alabama with I not necessarily to win, although that wouldn't surprise me. The market had Alabama as a 1.5, 1.5 point dogs against Georgia on a neutral site, and that was when Alabama was really banged up, and they're not nearly as banged up now as they were then. I have a tough time. I'm not saying Indiana isn't going to win this game, and Indiana is legitimately they're awesome, right? I know it's taken people time to get behind them, but that's a lot. You're right. For two, this is not Indiana versus James Madison. This is Indiana versus Alabama. Kalen DeBoer is a really good big game coach. He has been dating back to his time at Washington, and even really before that, if you follow his track record. I just think to get more than 6. Or to give more than 6 against Alabama neutral site. I don't know if I can play that. So I think I like playing Alabama as dogs here. Maybe not to win, but I definitely like them to cover. All right, so back to the NFL. I've played Houston and Cleveland. You've played Seattle. Who's your next pick?
By the way, shout out Nick. I know you were hoping we just said that Indiana was going to roll in that game. So So apologize for the Bama love, but man, you took 2 of my picks. So now, not a ton of games left since we lost. We had 3 games on Christmas, and is not a ton to pick from. So it's a little slim pickings here. And you mentioned this game at the beginning of the show, and you know where I'm going. You know where I'm going. I mean, I didn't think I would find a spot again to bet them. We won on them last week, but I bought a Las Vegas Raiders shirt that I wore on Christmas yesterday just because they made me some money last week, and I've just been rolling with them. But this is like the toilet bowl game where both teams want to lose. Like you said, we're playing for the number 1 pick. But if you're asking me which coach could give less of a shit about the future of his franchise and like what's going to happen, it's Pete Carroll. I don't think Pete Carroll is going to come in this game thinking we need the number 1 pick. And unless Brady gets in his ear somehow and talks him into, starting Kenny Pickett over Geno Smith or something like that. But the Giants, if you watch that Giants game, it was like a bizarre game last week against Minnesota. Like the play calling, they ran, I think they threw the ball 13 times. Dart, who I almost started in my fantasy football championship, thank goodness we made a last minute switch on that. But Dart had like negative points in fantasy. They did not look like they were trying to win the game last week. So why would they come out this week and all of a sudden be aggressive and look like they're trying to win the game? This line opened. I mean, the scary part is the line opened at the Raiders favored, and now the Giants are favored by 1.5. So what the books are doing with the line scares me a little bit, but some of that is because Brock Bowers isn't playing for the Raiders. So they flipped the line. They're saying Brock Bowers is worth 2 or 3 points. I'm not sure he's worth that much, but Andrew Thomas is out for the Giants, and really one of the only strengths of the Raiders is their defensive front, and Max Crosby can play on both sides of the line and can kind of pick his spots with Andrew Thomas not playing. So should be able to give Dart some problems. This is, like I said, it's one of those toilet bowl games that, on paper it doesn't matter, but they're playing for a lot because the loser is going to get that number 1 pick. And I'm gonna roll. And it's a public side. The 70% of their money is coming in on the Raiders. I'm rolling public, which is not normal, but I just think this Giants team has really thrown in the towel and is really the one that's going to be thinking about that number 1 pick a little bit more than the Raiders. So I'll take the spot with my Las Vegas Raiders.
No, I agree. That would have been my third play. I honestly it's weird with the Raiders because they're 2-13, but there are times when you watch them and they actually compete decently well. They lost to Houston by 2 points last week. I know they got blown out by Philly the week before. They lost to Denver by 7. They lost a close game in overtime to the Chargers or to the Jags, right? They're not going out. They lost by 1 point to the Bears. These are playoff teams. They beat the Patriots, right? Let's not forget the Raiders started the year 1-0. They beat the Patriots.
Right.
It seems like there's a little more give, like you said, a little more give a shit probably from the coach. And it seems like the team, they do compete. They're 2-13 because they're not very good, but I agree with you. And I think the Andrew Thomas injury is significant when Max Crosby's on the other side. So I like that. I like that Raiders play. I know it's weird to really get behind a team that's got 2 wins, but it seems like it's actually not a bad matchup. And they're at home, for whatever it's worth. They have a little bit of a home edge here. So I don't know that, people think Allegiant's, some major home field advantage compared to other venues, but I'd rather them be at home than be on the road in the elements playing in the Northeast. So I like. And
you would think the Giants you would think the Giants with an interim head coach is, you're talking about which coach is going to get influenced more by ownership in the GM. Right. It's going to be the Giants head coach. So if there's them telling him, hey, this is a spot where we're going to play like we did last week, run the ball 30 times and not really go after it. The only thing you could say about the Giants is if you think Dart is playing for some sort of, there's been some speculation, hey, we could trade Dart and take Mendoza number 1 or something like that. I don't see that happening, but if you think they're going to, Dart's going to come out and want to prove something in this game for the Giants. But I like the spot for the Raiders at home with a coach that, could give 2 shits if people are telling him, hey, this guy, if for all intents and purposes, Pete Carroll might not even be there next year. So right. I don't think.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Yeah.
Yeah. He
right.
So, yeah.
So what, Tom Brady? Fire me. Fine. You're
exactly.
firing me anyway.
I'll take my paycheck and sail off in the sunset. So
yeah.
Can't believe I'm doing it. I think I picked the Raiders on here. I mean, that might be my my most picked team. And it's funny, when I pick them, I either win the other two or lose with the Raiders, or win with the Raiders and lose the other
Lose
two.
the other
So
two.
hopefully we can just scoop everything this year with the Raiders in the mix. So
I need to find like a really obscure Raider, but like someone who people associate with the Raiders and get you that person's jersey. Like not like a bad player, but like Jerry Porter or something. I need to get you like a Jerry Porter Raiders
Sebastian
jersey.
Janikowski or something.
Yeah, Janikowski. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what are you seeing here in the Niners-Bears game? What line? I mean, I know there are threes out there. Are you seeing any 3.5s?
So I've seen some 3.5s. I'll double check. I did see 3 earlier with juice on the Niners, I believe. So let me see what I'm seeing now.
Because that hook is that one could come into play.
Yeah. So I am seeing 3 now with juice on the Niners right now. So it was 3.5, now 3 with juice on the Niners, at least on my book, meaning, it still could go back to 3.5.
3.5, yeah. I still would lean Bears at 3. I'm debating. I don't know what to do with this Tampa Miami game because a part of me wants to just hammer Tampa, but the other part of me wonder, because I just don't think Quinn Ewers is good, but it is his second start. He is at home. Tampa's D is not very good. We've talked about teams that, when you speak about injuries all year long, it eventually catches up to them. But Tampa does have to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Miami doesn't have anything really to play for. As a matter of fact, they probably are, big picture preferring to lose. But I think I got to go with I'm going to go with the Bears, even if it's just at 3. I will say this. I think that what Kyle Shanahan has done this year is maybe his best coaching job because they are so banged up. And I think Robert Saleh, whose name was kind of smeared from his time with the Jets, I don't know if he's going to be a good head coach again. I've talked about this before. It's so weird to me that the guys who become hot head coaching candidates are guys who are great coordinators, when to be a great head coach, the skill set you need doesn't really overlap a ton with being a great coordinator. But I understand, where else are you going to find your head coaching candidates? I guess it would have to be from a coordinator spot. Maybe Robert Saleh is going to be a good head coach if he gets another chance. He probably will get another chance. He's a great defensive coordinator, and he's done more with less this year with all their injuries. But I think Ben Johnson's got stuff figured out on that side. And getting 3 points, they've got a division to win. I don't know. I wonder if this is a spot where the Niners injuries kind of catch up to them against a really good, kind of efficient Bears offense. And Caleb Williams doesn't get sacked and he doesn't turn the ball over. He has done a really, really good job of giving his team a chance as he's worked through some things. And we've seen him, I know his numbers against the Packers last week weren't great, but he made some big time throws in big moments. I mean, that throw to DJ Moore to win the game was a money throw, and he made some other really big plays. The Packers handed that game to them on a platter, but that game was only a possibility because Caleb Williams made some big plays. I think I'm going to take the Bears here, getting 3. That this is a toss-up type game. If someone told me, hey, I'm really on the Niners, I mean, hell, I don't think people realize how good the Niners are. The Niners are an 11-win team. The Niners still could be the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, despite all their injuries, despite not having their starting quarterback for a good chunk of the season because Mac Jones played so well. But I don't know. I kind of think this is the Bears' opportunity to clinch a division in prime time. I'll take the Bears here. I'll take the Bears getting 3. If you can get it at 3.5, jump on it. So keep an eye on that. But I like the Bears in the spot.
Yeah, this is a close one. I lean Bears in this one. It wasn't going to be in my 3, and I haven't played it. I wish I would have played it at 3.5. If I don't see 3.5 at most books now, I don't think it's going to go back that way, just with the way I'm seeing the money coming in. I do think there is public and sharp money coming on the Bears. So I don't think if you can see that 3.5 anywhere, I would jump on that right now because that's a key number. It's a weird time in the NFL where you just have all these teams at the top of their conference that have flaws. I mean, you have both of these teams. I mean, San Francisco, like they said, that defense is patched together with duct tape. The Bears, do we trust Caleb Williams in these big spots? I mean, the Jags are one of these teams that have been amazing across the board recently, but do we trust them in the playoffs? The Broncos, I mean, these teams have flaws, and you have to decide which of the teams you trust. But 3.5 and 3 is a lot of points in a crucial primetime game. And this game, you know, even with these teams having flaws, this team can determine the 1 seed in the NFC, you know, with who wins this game. So the Bears have been competitive. I mean, as much shit as I've given them for being overvalued in certain spots this year, they've been competitive in pretty much every game. I've really faded them more as a favorite than as a dog. And I don't know. The Brock Purdy hype right now is as high as it's been after that game against the Colts. And I don't think, as bad as the Bears defense has been in certain areas, they turn the ball over. They bend but don't break. Statistically, they're not amazing, but they find ways to hold you to field goals or to turn the ball over, the most turnovers in the league. So I like getting the points here. The Bears, since the start of November, 7-1, and they've won against the Packers, they've won against the Steelers, they've won against the Eagles. So those are 3 playoff teams that they've beaten, and they've been competitive in pretty much every game this year. San Francisco, the worst part about their defense is they're the worst in the league at pressuring the quarterback. And what Caleb Williams has problems with is when he gets pressured and he has to roll out of the pocket and, you know, try to be Superman and make some mistakes. So you would think Caleb's going to have some time in this game. I do think they're getting some of their weapons back. I'm not sure about Odunze. I do think Burden's going to play.
Playing. Yeah, I think they said today he's out.
Odunze is out.
Odunze's out, yeah.
Odunze's out. I do think Burden's going to play, and they should be able to run. You know, Ben Johnson's run scheme has been fantastic. They should be able to run the ball. I was surprised to see the Colts not be able to run the ball on the Niners last week, but they should be able to run the ball. So getting this many points, we're going to fade the Purdy love, fade the public a little bit, and take the points in a game that should be really competitive. So I like it. It wasn't probably going to be my 3. I love it at 3.5 if you can get the hook. So if you can find that, we'll take that.
Question for you, not betting related, just football talk. Of all the quarterbacks in the league in their first or second year, so rookies or second-year quarterbacks, you could take one right now. Who are you taking? Because at the end of last year, everyone was, Jaden Daniels.
Tyler Shuck. No, I'm just kidding.
I figured you were going to say Tyler Shuck. Maybe, right? Like let's not disrespect Tyler Shuck and the work he's done. But
we have Bo Nix, we've got Caleb Williams,
Drake May.
We're not going to put
Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix.
We're not really going to put like Cam Ward in those. I mean,
yeah. To me, it comes down to Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix.
I mean, I think you have to go with
Williams.
Drake. I think you have to go with Drake May just on what you've seen. You know, what the future can hold for him. Is it just scheme and Mike Vrabel? But he's been just consistent and a guy that I think will be in the league for the next 15 years, where I could see a path. I think Caleb Williams is going to be in the league for a long time too, but I could see a path where he might not be at some point of his career if he turns the ball over a ton and, you know, becomes a non-winning quarterback. But Caleb Williams is right there. I mean, I got to give him credit. So he's, you know, he's been clutch in these big time games this year. He's come up big late, and then Bo Nix, you know, giving him a lot of crap. He's been, you know, having a lot of comeback wins, but I would probably rank it 1 May, 2 Caleb Williams, and then Bo Nix. I mean, Jaden Daniels has got to be in the mix a bit. It's just now with
crazy
the injuries.
Yeah. Because and that's what we all like. That's if you were, I don't want to say anti Jaden Daniels, but like I had this conversation last year, and Drake May was not a name that I put out there because, but like I said, I would take Caleb over Jaden Daniels because I don't think Jaden Daniels is going to be able to stay healthy. The way that he is used, the way he needs to play to be successful and in the frame. And that's a weird thing. I always find it weird to predict or forecast injuries, but like, I think if you asked a lot of people other than Commanders fans or maybe LSU fans, they would not have Jaden Daniels in their top 3 right now. And if at this time last year, if you didn't have Jaden Daniels number 1 out of that group, then you would probably have stuff thrown your way. But I would still, I feel like I've got to ride out Caleb, because I said before the draft, hey, I think like he's got a chance to be like just a perennial all-pro quarterback. And I do still believe that. I think he's had a big year, and I'm curious what next year looks like in year 2 with Ben Johnson. But I mean, what Drake May's done is really impressive. I think those two have separated themselves.
Right.
I like Bo Nix more than I did at the beginning of the year, but I still can't fully. I don't know. I'm still like 1 foot over the line, 1 foot not over the line. I'm like really believing that he can do it for the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. And Denver hasn't really, like we've said, they haven't been tested a ton this year as far as the defenses that they've played. And you saw him against Jacksonville this last week. And, that was a bigger spot against a good defense and didn't really come up big. Didn't look great against Kansas City yesterday. So I like
Zach,
those rankings, Daniels.
Breaking news here. Jordan Love is out. So we're already seeing that number move. It's now down to 3.5. Packers still favored. Malik Willis is going to start. Malik Willis was dealing with, he had a shoulder thing at the end of last week, and then there's an illness going around Green Bay's team. But Malik Willis is going to start, but no Jordan Love. And immediately that number has now gone from Packers favored by 4.5 to Packers favored by 3.5. So still favored. And I don't think, let's see, I don't know. I want to make sure. Lamar Jackson is doubtful, but he has not yet been listed as out. That could happen any minute.
Yeah, the Lamar stuff, I mean, if he's got back spasms, I just don't expect you're going to see him in that game. From a betting perspective, I like the Packers even more. Yeah. If I can get a better number. Right. If I can get a better number with Malik, if I can get it down to 3 or 2.5, we'll wait to see what happens with the line. But I don't think the drop-off from Love to Willis is, like I said, the same drop-off that it is from Lamar to Huntley. Agreed. Of what the Packers offense can do with Malik. They can still run pretty much the same scheme of offense. They're still going to be wanting to give the ball to Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson. And, Malik, did all the things you wanted to see from him last week against Chicago in that fluke loss. So if I can get a better number with Malik, it might make me take the Packers if I can get a really good number. So we'll see what happens with the line movement. I still think the Packers across the board are a better football team than the Ravens. Better defense, better up front. I like I don't know what John Harbaugh, yeah. Who knows? I mean, I had the Ravens in that game. I had a, up and down week last week, but the Ravens in that game, and to take Derrick Henry out of the game late in that game,
it was weird.
Is very strange to me. And, I don't think the Baltimore is trending in the right direction without Lamar. So like I said, if I can get a better number on the Packers, it may force my hand a little bit because I like the spot with Malik Willis just as much as I do with Love, and I'm going to get a better number. So,
yeah, I agree. The Packers have never lost with Malik Willis as a starter. He went 2-0 last year, played well. Didn't start last week, obviously, but played well enough, made a big-time throw that looked like it was going to be the dagger. And then the Packers special teams did what they always do, or at least have over the last 15 years. And don't read into any frustration or heartbreak that it comes through my words when I say that the Packers special team has been the most disappointing unit in the NFL and the reason why Aaron Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl. So, okay. So that's in play. You still have one more pick to make.
That is in play. I don't think that's going to be my pick. There's too many question marks in that game. I wanted my pick to be on the Eagles-Bills game because that's probably the best game left. But again, too many question marks in that game. In theory, the Eagles don't really have much to play for, but I'm hearing they're playing their starters, and now I'm hearing that Josh Allen has this mystery injury to his foot that we don't know how bad it is, and he hasn't practiced all week. Some strange line movement there with 70% of the bets coming on the Bills, but the line moved towards the Eagles. So I lean Eagles actually in that game, but that's not going to be my play. Just I don't have enough information to make a play on that game yet. So it's down to 2 games, and they're both AFC South home teams.
Okay. So you're thinking about Jags Colts, right? That's one of the games.
That is one of the games.
Okay, and then are you also thinking about Titans Saints?
Yeah, and this is the nasty hold your nose one, and I'm going to go with it. And it's a kind of a hedge for me because I told you about that Tyler Shuck bet, 200-1. Last week, 16-1 it dropped to. I gave the path. 3.5-1 this week, Tyler Shuck to win offensive MVP. So
offensive rookie of the year. Rookie of the year.
Oh, yeah, not MVP. Yeah, Shuck is not the MVP yet. He'll probably be the MVP next year, but no, I'm just kidding.
Hey, he said in that way. That's what I need to do. I need to get you a Tyler Shuck jersey.
Yeah, I need to get the Tyler Shuck jersey. I should have parlayed his offensive rookie of the year with some other lock bets, but I bet him at 200-1. He's down to 3.5-1. And you would think that means I'm going to take the Saints minus 2.5 at the Titans, but I'm going to take the real gross spot and take the Titans at home. And I'm going to wait on this one. I'm still seeing 2.5 at most books, but I'm thinking this line could get to 3 with about 80% of the money coming in on the Saints. This line has not budged, even with 80% of the money coming in on the Saints. And the Saints were a favorite at home last week. They crushed the Jets and did cover. But I want to see how Shuck deals with success going on the road now. And this Titans team, since Mike McCoy's come in, has been competitive. And they've been playing hard. And I think they're going to play hard again this week. And, props to both these coaches, both Kellen Moore and Mike McCoy, for getting their teams up for these meaningless games late in the year. But this is really just a play on the number. I know, the Saints have looked good, and the lowly Titans, it's hard to back this team. But when I see this much money coming in on one side and the line not budging, I just know from a sharp perspective that the Titans are the right side. It's a hedge for me because if Tyler Shuck wins this game on the road, he's going to be even more of a favorite to win offensive rookie of the year. Especially we'll see what we get from Teteroa McMillan, who's now the favorite. So a little bit of a hedge for me personally, but I do like the Titans in this spot. I know it's like a hold your nose, and but this game will make it in my quad box come Sunday with my red zone. So it will be primetime TV with my bets on Tyler Shuck, and I do like the Titans here. So I'm rolling with the Titans. The other one was the Colts, and I do like the spot for the Colts, but the Jags have just owned the Colts in their recent history, and I think the Titans is a slightly better spot. So we'll make the Titans my third pick. God, Titans and Raiders.
Yeah,
in the mix this week. So
look at the juggernauts.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. One of the games I thought about, Miami, Tampa. I'm seeing that Tampa that numbers dropped a little bit. So if you like Tampa, you're getting better value on it today than you were at the beginning of the week. Tampa laying 5.5. They're on the road, but not a long trip. It's in Miami. All signs point to hey, Tampa should roll here, but they just haven't been doing that at all. Quinn Ewers in his second start and a rookie quarterback at home. Maybe they could put up enough of a fight, plus running the ball with Devon Achane. That's been a pain point for Tampa, their ability really defensively in any capacity, but to stop the run. I just kind of think that I didn't play it here. I think I'm still leaning Tampa. That was a game I left out where I was kind of you mentioned Philly Buffalo, and that's going to be a great game. I just that I don't have a strong feeling on that. You mentioned Allen's foot. Philly's saying they're going to play their starters, but their starters are going to start, but like that doesn't mean they're going to play the whole game. That just was one I didn't want anything to do with. But the Tampa Bay Miami game, I wonder if I'm going to regret not playing Tampa Bay, because my gut is telling me that this is the game where they figure stuff out. But I don't know. I'm having a tough time getting around on it.
Yeah, I do like Tampa Bay as well. They're on a 7-game ATS losing streak. We mentioned that last week, even though we did end up playing the Panthers. You would think at some point that's going to revert to the mean with 7 games against the spread losing. But we've said it with Baker. Something's wrong with him. I think that hit early in the year definitely changed him. QBR, completion percentage, EPA per play. You look at all these stats, he's near the bottom of the league for the last 10 weeks. So there's no excuse for Baker not to be able to move the ball against this defense with all of his weapons back, with Mike Evans back, with Bucky Irvin back, with Igbuka. You would think this is a get-right spot for Tampa. The line did move, early in the week it was like 4.5, I believe. Then it went to 6, now 5.5. So I think the sharps are coming in once they saw that 6 number on the Dolphins. We did get some sharp money coming in on Miami, but the unknown in this game is Quinn Ewers, and he was able to move the ball a little bit against Cincy, but he is going to turn the ball over. And, Tampa's D, hopefully can, if you have them, hopefully can cause some turnovers in this game. So weird spot. I do lean Tampa Bay. I think this team does play for a division championship next week. And so I do think I can't see that Tampa Panthers game meaning nothing next week. And I think maybe it's just the way I believe the NFL kind of works and some of these games, and just being like, they don't want more meaningless games. So I have some bias that I believe that these things just end up happening. But at some point, this Tampa offense is going to get right. And this is, if they can't do it here, they're not going to do it anywhere. So this is their back against the wall. I think we see some big points from Tampa's offense this week. And so, I would back Tampa Bay. I don't know if I'm going to play it, but if you had to make me pick, I would take Tampa.
All right. So let's recap the picks. Zach, laying 7 with Seattle, getting 1.5 with Vegas, getting 2.5 with Tennessee. I'm getting 2 with Houston, getting 3 with Cleveland, getting 3 with Chicago. So 5 of our 6 picks, underdogs. Of those underdogs, all are within 3 points. So we're not playing any big dogs, and the one big number Zach is laying as a favorite with Seattle. I wanted to quickly, just if you had to make one bet right now on a Super Bowl winner, I'll read you the odds. You tell me which one would be your pick. Rams 19-4, so plus 475. Seahawks plus 700, that's 7-1. Bills 35-4, that's plus 875. Eagles plus 950. Broncos plus 1,000. Patriots plus 1,100. Niners plus 1,200. Texans plus 1,400. Jags plus 1,400. Packers plus 1,500. Bears plus 18. Chargers plus 2,000, and then you got some other team, but I don't think you're going to put any money on the Steelers, the Bucks, the Ravens, the Panthers, or the Colts. So of the 12 teams I listed, and I stopped, I included the Chargers. I think I would be really surprised if the Chargers won the Super Bowl. I would be surprised if the Bears won, but not really surprised. So I think there are 11 teams right now who, if they won the Super Bowl, I wouldn't totally think that you're just April Foolsing me. But of those teams, is there one value-wise you're like, hey, I'm going to jump on that number?
I've been on the Rams all year. I bet them at a bunch of different numbers, and I know it's the chalky pick, but they've been my piggy bank this year, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. I had to hold myself from taking them in the 3 this week at 7.5. I'm probably going to play them just because I keep giving the McVay stats out in December. He's now 17-3 against the spread in his last 23-0 this year, but the Rams, to me, are still in a different class than the rest of the teams. I know they lost to Seattle, but the Seattle had to pull a rabbit out of their ass to beat them, and that was in Seattle. And I do think if the Rams play the Seahawks again in the NFC Championship game, even if it's in Seattle, I believe we'll see the Rams be a favorite in that game. And the Rams would be a favorite in a neutral field against any team in the NFL right now. You're giving me that was without Devontae last week as well. So you would think Devontae is going to be back in the playoffs. You get, Stafford with his weapons in the playoffs. I would say Seattle is my second team, and the Rams, I would have them favored against Seattle. So I know it's chalky, but I think I'm getting value with the number one power ranked team in the league. And, I think it's a slam dunk for me that it'd be the Rams. The AFC is tempting because you're getting these nice numbers on team. There's a lot of different teams that can do it and get to that Super Bowl. And then if you want to hedge, if it is the Rams that they play or the Seahawks and they're a 4.5 point dog or something like this in the Super Bowl, now you can bet the other side or whatever and hedge because you got such a good number on, let's say, the Jags at 14-1, and somehow the Jags find a way into the Super Bowl. Now you can hedge the other side because you got such a good number on these AFC teams. But if you're going to ask me one, it's not close for me. I bet them at the beginning of the year. I bet them in the middle of the year. I bet them at the current number. It's the Rams. And the scary part is they're probably going to, with the result last week, they're going to have to be on the road, and they're going to have to be on the road. But it doesn't scare me with this class of team. With McVay in the playoffs, that's my team. So that would be my pick.
And if I don't think this is obviously the favorite to win. I'm not calling my shot here, but if you ask me like for a value play somewhere a little further down the board, I would say take your pick between whichever team you like better, Jacksonville or Houston. And I'm not saying I'm picking either team to win, but Jacksonville's just been really good. Like, I think Liam Cohen's done a really good job. And Houston's defense will travel, and with their defense, they have a chance to win any game they play. And it's just a matter of whether they can do enough offensively. And so I would, if you're looking for a down the board value play, I like Houston and Jacksonville better than, say, San Fran. I like them better than Green Bay. I like them better than the Bears. Heck, I'll be honest, I like Houston and Jacksonville better than Buffalo. One of the reasons I know that Josh Allen has a clearer path now, but I just think this is the worst we talked about. I think this is the worst Buffalo team in the competitive or the contending window with Josh Allen. I think they're so one-dimensional, and it's just tough for me to get around Buffalo as a team that wins the Super Bowl. But man, I do like Josh Allen, and I would certainly be happy if they made their run.
Yeah, and for him to do it, he's going to have to be Superman for 5 weeks on the road, and he's going to have to stay healthy while being Superman. And we've already got the foot injury now that we're hearing about, and for him to win all these big games in the playoffs, he's going to have to, do a lot for that team and stay healthy the way he plays the game. There is that risk of that, and like you said, the AFC is wide open, but this is the worst Bills team. I don't think we have that juggernaut Chiefs and Ravens team to be scared of this year. So that is a path for the Bills, but he just doesn't have the supporting cast on offense or defense to get him there. So it would be quite the feat if he's able to get them to the Super Bowl. Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, here you go. That's another week of the betting booth. We'll be back next week for week 18. And maybe we'll do a college football playoff bonus show. We'll discuss that. But again, Zach's picks, he's going with Seattle -7, Vegas +1.5, Tennessee +2.5. I've got Houston +2, Cleveland +3, Chicago +3. Hopefully we can go 6-0 and help everyone make some money. Again, he's Zach. I'm Jared. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.